Footballer, basketballer, volleyballer, swimmer, name it, has a humble beginning. It could be at a tiny pitch, dusty pitch, or a surface just in their backyard. Today, we go behind the scenes to examine or interrogate these small turning points. And joining me today on the Gantry UG is Chief Marketing Officer of the USSA, which is the Uganda Schools Sports Association, Mr. Saddam Bulega. Saddam, welcome to the Gantry.
Thank you so much, Raymond. Happy to be at the Gantry and looking forward to sharing my experience as well.
Saddam, before we dive deep into the USS and what it does in development of sports in this country, I know you to be a fanatic of sport, especially with the young kids. Have you been watching the World Cup?
Yes, sir.
Take me through your experience so far. I mean, we're left with only 2 games. Today we have the third and fourth place playoff, and then tomorrow, of course, the final. What has been your experience from day one, us seeing South Africa being beaten by Mexico at Azteca in Mexico, to where we are right now? What has been your overall experience in the World Cup?
My overall experience, I think, is this has been the most well-organized World Cup in terms of infrastructure. But when we get to some nitty-gritties, the smallest, like the smallest things that are needed to be done, speaking from the commercial side of view, is I think that USA especially has failed a lot, especially on the small key things that they need to do, especially in terms of hospitality. We've had cases of some of the teams being mistreated in terms of accommodation and travel. And then we have some officials that were returned. But all in all, it has been the best World Cup in terms of organization, in terms of infrastructure. But to get to the sporting bit, I think for me, this is one of the biggest shockers of the world, because for the first time as African nations have reached the highest stage in big numbers. All of them qualified, I think, for the round of 32, and those were about 10 teams.
I think there were 9 apart from Tunisia.
Yeah, apart from Tunisia. So for me, that's one of the things that I credit CAF about, because football is grown through the grassroots, and through the grassroots is when you can see the likes of Hakimi rising up. And if they can get to a stage like that and have big numbers representing the whole continent to that stage, I think it's a shock. It's a shock to the world, but to us, it's a signal that as African nations, we are trying to do something that is bigger than what the world thinks of us.
So Saddam, I mean, it's been a World Cup mainly for the forwards, as I said. We have seen those that have had their last dance in Cristiano Ronaldo, Modric, and probably this could be the last World Cup maybe for Lionel Messi. But maybe many have argued that the man still has a lot in his engine to give us one more World Cup in him. But we have also seen the rise of youngsters like Lamine Yamal. We have seen the likes of Diamande. What do you have to say about the young talent that has been showcased at this World Cup?
Yeah, a lot of kids have come on the block, but I can't fail to mention that Lamine Yamal has showed that he's a world threat. He can go against the legends and then create opportunities that can turn into results in any match. So given the fact, and actually the entire Spain team is averagely young players that are putting up the show to the world, that they are trying to communicate that what we are building for the next 10 or 5 years is something that you must watch out for. Yeah.
So what a final we have on our hands tomorrow. It's going to give us a full circle moment. I mean, we have all seen the one photo that has gone viral on the internet of more than 18 years ago, Lionel Messi giving a birth to a young Lamine Yamal at a UNICEF event. So it's going to give us a full circle moment. I mean, football knows how to carve out these spectacles. So one would argue that Messi had most of his time at Barcelona, but they felt like he was not given a good send-off. But now, this encounter between Argentina and Spain, do you think it would be the best send-off, given that he's going to face a Spanish team that has one, a generational talent, a group of 8 Barcelona players gracing this World Cup? Do you think this would be the ultimate send-off, maybe for the Spanish fans that were entertained by Messi for the time he spent in Barcelona?
What I believe is that the team Argentina, most of the players have been in Spain and have played there. But I believe that Argentina is going to question a lot of, give a lot of questions where they need answers to in terms of sporting. And I believe every player is going to look out for Messi and try to give him the opportunities to create as many opportunities as possible. But I can't go without mentioning that the way Spain plays, believe me or not, it is going to be a hard tussle for Argentina, because Spain has that bit of tic-tac or box play. They find a way of seeing each other at every time or at every moment. So it is going to be a hard game, but I believe that Messi is going to ask a lot of questions to the defensive and midfield of Spain. But I believe Spain is going to as well come back with their style of play. They will not go off their style of play. Yeah.
So, Saddam, against that backdrop, what would be your honest prediction for tomorrow's game? Who bags this year's World Cup?
I believe Argentina has the pedigree to win this match. Yeah, given the fact that they will face a lot of opposition from Spain, but Argentina has the pedigree to win the game.
So you're going for Argentina. Yes. Now let's dig deep into our conversation for today. Saddam, for the few months I've known you, you have quite a CV. You've worked with FIFA, you've done work with AFCON, the WAFCON. Now we are seeing you at, in fact, you've also done work with CAF, and now we are seeing you at USSA. What has drawn you towards grassroots development in terms of sport?
So number one is that every athlete has a background. So they have a beginning. It's either humble or harsh. So schools in our country, Uganda, they play that critical role of introducing athletes to sports. And speaking about Uganda Secondary School Sports Association, it encompasses a lot of disciplines, sports disciplines. So kids emanate from there to play, let me say, Scrabble, Ludo, or volleyball, basketball, or the football, and so on and so forth. So my main reason for joining grassroots football or grassroots sport is basically because I've gained a lot of experience from the national body that runs football in the country, and that's FIFA. But also I've gained some experience with organizing major tournaments at continental level, especially in terms of commercial delivery of obligations of sponsors, and plus also organizing the event itself, rotating around international or national tournaments or championships. So my lure to going back to the grassroots, basically joining OSA, is to create a better pathway, a better and well-organized pathway where we nurture students or student athletes to be in an environment where they can play a more organized game or a more organized sport compared to finding a more organized sport at their late ages, and then they mess up while there. You are well conversant that we've had a lot of export in terms of talent that has not done well where they have gone, and then in just maybe half a season or a few months or even a few years, and then they return back here and then play within our association football or association sport. But what we are trying to do at USSA is to create an organized kind of competition or championship where each and every athlete feels that there is some little bit of organization that they can expect even when after they leave school environment. Yeah.
Saddam, for many, even me myself, we thought USSA was maybe a rebrand from what we knew as the Coca-Cola post-primary, because the biggest sport in this country is football, and some of us have been privileged to be in the top schools when it comes to football, like St. Mary's Chitende, Chivuli, and the old Kampalas and the likes. But of course, we have seen also new schools spring up like Bukedia, the Amuses of today. Most of us thought that maybe this was just a rebrand from the post-primary to what we are seeing today. today. Would you try to walk us through what USS exactly is? Is it only just football, or it covers all sports?
So USSA covers all sports, especially that is being played by schools. So even me myself, before joining, that's the belief I had, majorly because maybe Coca-Cola by then gave it a little bit of vibe and hype, and mainly also because I've also played the post-primary before while I was still in school on the side of football. But the biggest thing I have to say about that is that even during my career, when I joined, I've walked through separate brands, and then I've asked them, do you know USA? And then they don't know. So not necessarily because they don't know that it is existent. They know that it is existent, but the biggest name that carries the name schools out there is the Under-20 Football Championship, and in USA we term it as our premium brand, that our premium property that we sell to the brands that are willing to associate with us. So basically USA does a lot of sport. It does a lot of sport, inclusive of all mind games, athletics, infield sport as well, plus all on-court sports and everything else. But my take is that brands need to understand this, and they need to come on board, well knowing that grassroots football is the way to go. Because if you do not sponsor with the if you do not sponsor a property that gives you the biggest numbers in the country, then you don't know what you're doing.
Thing structured, because for many we thought it subscribed to a federation. Given that we all thought it was just a footballing thing, we thought maybe USA fell under FUFA. How is USA structured? Is it an independent body of its own? Does it subscribe to the National Council of Sport? How is USA structured?
So USA is structured in a way that we get our mandate from the Ministry of Education and Sport under the Department of Physical Education, headed by Reverend Canon Dr. Duncan Mugumya. So that's where we pick our mandate from. We do not directly report to National Council of Sport, but however, we are regulated by them, but we do not directly report to them. So in terms of policy and implementation, if a policy comes up and it is supposed to be implemented nationwide, it is that's when we bow down to National Council of Sport. For example, we've had the last concluded championship of National Bell Games 1 that were organized just recently, concluded in Gulu. But there was a communication that came from the ministry through the National Council of Sport, and we had to obey that because we had to abide by the standard operating procedures set by the Ministry of Health. And the communication is supposed to directly come from either the ministry or National Council of Sport. So that's one bit of it. But in terms of internal structure, USA itself has leadership that is headed by the president with his executive committee members, but also it has also delegates from across the country representing districts and zones. Yeah.
So Saddam, I'm sure you've probably hinted about this. USA covers quite a number of schools and sports teams at the grassroots. Walk us through how a young athlete can move from a school team to a bigger team, regardless of the sport.
Yeah. So the value chain of sport, I believe, starts from an informal kind of setting. With that, I mean a child, for example, my daughter and your son, start up from a compound like this at home and start kicking around a ball or shooting a ball up and then catching it with their hands and so on and so forth. Or probably while at the dining, they play Scrabble or Ludo or cards, if I may say. So, but the more kind of a more formal way of organized sports, where they find that kind of environment is always the schools themselves. So a normal athlete accesses normal or formal organized sport through schools, and then from schools is when they are identified, especially during these championships. For example, they just concluded ball games too in Gulu. We had scouts being sent by FUFA to basically scout the best talent. You know, FUFA implemented the technical master plan, which they are trying to implement, and during ball games too, we had the under 17 and under 14 football, both boys and girls. So they had to come in specifically to do the scouting, but also to extend some little bit of support to the schools, where they offered them a few pieces of balls for each school that was participating in the under 15 football championship. So in terms of the value chain, it is from that stage, or the national stage of championship, where they are scouted by the different scouts from each and every federation, and then they are taken up by either the national teams or the clubs or the academies. Yeah.
But Saddam, in the recent past, or maybe you could say, we are seeing very many mushrooming schools coming up, both in the urban setup and in the rural setups. But most of these schools don't have playgrounds where kids can play. So do you think that even with USS coming on board, do you think that there's actual talent development or grassroots development in these schools? Because I mean, just a few kilometers away from us here is Victoria University, but it's just one building in the middle of town without even a playing court. I mean, and this is at the highest level. So, and we're seeing the same happening in schools. We're seeing very many schools mushrooming around the city and even in the villages, but don't even have a basketball court or even a small pitch like this, or a small compound like this where kids can play. So do you really think the development is taking place in the grassroots, or what are those actual bottlenecks that are affecting grassroots development in these schools?
So basically, the biggest challenge that we have as a country is infrastructure, and I can't go without saying that infrastructure. We don't mean the playing field or the courts where the best legends of football or any other sport play from, but a basic requirement for at least any athlete to practice a sport they want. That's the biggest challenge that we have, and I'm happy that the government is trying to address that by putting up a few facilities across the country. But the fact is that even schools, when you're setting up to get a license from the Ministry of Education, there are minimum requirements for physical education. If you are to get a license, you get. For example, if you are a secondary school, you need to start from, let me say, according to the regulation, you need to start with a piece of land that is about 10 acres. Why 10 acres? Is because they require you to have infrastructure, but also infrastructure in terms of classrooms, but also places or areas where students can practice sport from. And it is a mandatory requirement that each and every secondary school must have a field where students can practice sport from. But according to the regulations themselves as well, they give a leeway for urban cropped up schools to partner with the community. For example, I can give you an example of let me say which school? Let me say Victoria SS. So Victoria SS that was established within the urban centers of Kampala can go ahead and partner with Nakivubo and get a license to use Nakivubo as their field of play. So that leeway gives even these urban cropped up schools to have at least maybe a memorandum of understanding with already established facilities, which is in most cases always being overpopulated by games, especially given the fact that they are within the center. But at least there is that leeway that even an urban school that does not have much land or much space to have PE being practiced within school can at least partner with the next field or facility, sports facility next to them, and then have the activities done. Yeah.
So from our earlier conversation before, of course, we shot this, we had talked about budgets. You said You have a budget of about 9 billion every financial year to run your activities as USS. But of course, from your experience, we have seen you've activated some, you've been able to own some sponsorships for AFCON, for CAF, and maybe even FIFA itself in the different engagements I've had over the recent years. So what experience do you bring to USS as a chief marketing officer there?
Yeah, in sports, we have what we call grants, and usually grants are always stringent on kinds of deliverables based on the person that is giving the grant. So what USA has is basically not enough, because it is stringent on organizing championships. Like, it has specific activities that they must do to ensure that all the money is accounted for as per the directive of the Ministry of Education and Sport. But my going on board is basically to bring in some kind of value that is flexible for them to use, especially when we have burning issues or activities that we want to run, and we can use within our resources that are flexible to probably tap on and then have these activities done. So why I'm on board is basically that, but also to rebrand or paint a picture that school sport or grassroots sport is the way to go for brands that want to captivate on especially the customer lifetime value, but also capturing the customers of tomorrow. Yeah.
So if we look, let's say maybe 3, 4, 5 years back, and now with USS on board, what do you think has really changed in our grassroots development?
Yeah, number one is that there's some kind of bit of formal organization. For example, I can give you an example of where I've been. For example, FIFA, they are trying to come up with some kind of formal regulations of how academies or schools that have academies can operate. But even at USA, we try as much as possible to create an avenue where each and every school must participate. For example, this year alone, we've had about 6,800 plus schools participate from grassroots to national championship. Actually, from district to national championship. So that gives us a leeway of having or testifying that at least sport is being practiced within schools. But also, in terms of numbers, a lot of athletes are coming up, and a lot of athletes are being identified, basically because there is that bit of formal organization within grassroots sport. Yeah.
So Saddam, as we wrap, who's watching this today, what do they really have to focus on to see that they make it into the professional ranks in sport, and this, especially in a third world country like Uganda?
So I have 3 points, but I'm happy to say that the first 3 are always constant. Number 1 is education. Stay in school. If you're an athlete out there, you need to stay in school, because at the end of the day, talent can wash away or can get expired, but your books can never get expired. So stay in school. Number 2, be consistent with your education progress. By that I mean that don't study today and then tomorrow don't study today and then tomorrow don't study. Be consistent. Study today, study tomorrow, and study everywhere. So I've had examples of the likes of Kajimu Shafiq, the likes of Muchure Zipo, who were active players but at the same time going to study. You get, and where they are is simply because not that they are not utilizing their fruits of studies, but because they know that we can, after football or after any other sport, we can go and do something else. Then thirdly is that they need to be consistent. If it is time for or if it is a program for sport, please give the time that is required. But if it is time for education, plus also give time for that. If it is time for home and helping your parents, give time for that. Then lastly is follow your intuition. Follow your positive intuition. Follow your positive intuition in a way that don't listen to everybody. Listen to only and only the people that matter, and take what you believe is positive to your life thereafter. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Saddam, for gracing our invitation. It's been a pleasure having you in the country. For the young athletes out there, I think you've heard it from the man himself. Education is key. Trust your intuition, and the rest will follow in line. For our viewers, please continue sharing these videos, liking them, and commenting. Thank you so much, and we shall see you in the next one.